Okay, hi everyone. This is Stephanie, and I chose to talk about aerial acrobatics for this presentation. So, why did I choose aerial acrobatics? I think everybody has chosen great sports that I'm so glad that I got to learn more about. So, I chose something very unique. So how it came about is because of Performance Enhancement B, we had to find an athlete and do like volunteer sessions with to practice, implementing our ability to teach these mental training skills to somebody. And I found a gymnast through a friend, and I just thought, oh, gymnastics, that's cool. Don't know much about gymnastics really either, but I've always been interested in it. And come to find out, when I sat down with her, she is actually an aerial acrobatics. So I kind of got thinking, oh, that'd be great to do for this presentation because I know nothing about aerial acrobatics either. And it's such a beautiful sport, so I'd love to kind of learn more. And she was very willing to kind of talk to me about, her experiences and how she got started and just tell me a little bit more about the sport and specifically about the circus because she does the circus. So I'm really happy that I got to sit down with her. So I got to sit down with her a second time and talk to her and just ask her questions about the sport, and she shared with me. So there's a lot of different like subfields, I guess you could say, in acrobatics. And I chose to focus more on aerial acrobatics because that's specifically what she does, and it's kind of what I've always been more interested in. I've seen Cirque du Soleil and I fell in love with it and I thought it was just the coolest thing. So I really wanted to focus on the aerial aspect of it because it is a newer aspect to acrobatics. So I just picked these pictures because this is what we're going to talk about, which is the aerial silks, or we call them ribbons, and then we'll talk about other a few other of the acrobat sports too. So to talk a little about the history, so it was hard to find like history about acrobatics, and specifically about aerial acrobatics. So aerial silks, the origin is in 1959, and it was in a French circus school. And the way it kind of came about is because a student was told, hey, do something different, present a different act to us. And somehow she came up with the addition of adding fabric to her performance. And so that's kind of how it like first started, like a little glimmer of, adding this fabric to her performances, but not until 1998, so extremely new and current, it didn't really become recognized, and it became recognized because of these two ladies named Isabel, right? Both named Isabel, and they presented at the 1998 Quidam as part of Cirque du Soleil, and that's kind of when it just took off really quickly. A lot of people saw it, and they kind of just fell in love with like the beauty of it. And then in 2002 it was even like presented on BBC about the aerial acrobatics, so it just kind of really caught on really quickly after 1998. And now if you go to almost any circus show or a variety show, you'll see these ribbons or lyra, which we'll talk about uh, in the performance. And when I went to Australia, I was able to go to a variety show, and in the variety show, they even did an aerial silk performance. It was awesome. So I think what so many people like about aerial ribbons and about aerial acrobatics is that it combines the creativity, exercising, flexibility, and music in such a unique way. So there's just so many things thrown into one. And there's also like that kind of adrenaline because it's kind of like scary, some of the things that they do. And it's just so fun and like interesting to watch. So I think that's why so many people have liked it and why it's caught on so quickly. Okay, so in aerial ribbons, right? So this is a picture of aerial ribbons and a bunch of people doing it. There's you can climb up is one of the first techniques, and you think the girl in the middle on the black ribbons is that's kind of what she's doing. It's probably what most of them are doing is learning how to climb. But you can also twist yourself up in the ropes. You can spin in them, and then you can drop, which is like really cool because it's when they kind of like roll themselves out of the ribbon and drop. But all of it is they're able to do it specifically because of how they tie themselves um into the ribbons or silks. and they're able to control themselves because of those certain knots and the way that they tie themselves in. So those are really important to them being able to perform. And just something else is that a lot of these aerial ribbons are now starting to do like exercising classes. So you can actually find gyms. I don't think there's a lot of them yet, but there you can find gyms where you can actually just go do it for fun and learn the techniques. And it's also a great workout. So these like exercising classes that people are taking are becoming more and more popular for people. So there's also poses and sequences. Um, so the poses and sequences are oftentimes borrowed from older aerial art forms like trapeze or doing the rope tricks. So a lot of this isn't necessarily new stuff, but they're using old stuff but incorporating the silks and the ribbons with them. So you can see people do partners, and these are probably poses or sequences that are very common to other trapeze techniques, but they're still creating new stuff with the use of ribbons. That's what's so cool about the circus and aerial acrobatics is a lot of these people will just come up with new things because, during their training, they're just trying new stuff, and then something new is created. So you can obviously do partners, and just going back to like the new stuff that's being created is the thing like drops, slides, and rolls. Those are all different and new techniques that are started in aerial silks. So I think that's really cool to know. And then also just to touch on the fabric. So the fabric is supposedly, so you have to have it a certain length, obviously, to be able to do that. But you also have to make sure that it's really stretchy, like extremely stretchy. Usually it's a little bit more silkier material and it's really thick. So they say that it's very supple and pliable, and it has to be because you have to be able to move with the fabric. It has to be able to stretch and, conform to the different things that you need it to do. So I have never touched the fabric. I wish I could have gone to see it, but if you ever take an exercise class at one of these gyms or try it, it's probably like a really nice stretchy material. Okay, so now I kind of want to talk about my interview that I had with my athlete and what I learned from her. So her name is Hannah. She is a college student right now. She is about to graduate, and she started doing acrobatics or gymnastics when she said 7 or 8. She can't remember specifically, but her mom put her in it. And she started off doing the artistic gymnastics, and the artistic gymnastics is basically the thing that we think of when we think of gymnastics, which is the Olympics, the high vault, the beam, all of that. She started doing that. She said at 15 she felt like she kind of grew out of it, and her gym kind of transitioned to a different gym and different coaches, and she got more into the circus aspect of it. So now she calls it TNT, which is trampoline and tumbling. Sorry, trampoline and tumbling. And she's been doing that since she was 15, and she really just like became really passionate and fell in love with it and doing like the circus type of routines. So she does that regularly now. She does team and independent contracts. So she works with her partner, and they're like a team. They work together, and they've done things at like the San Diego Zoo, she said, which is probably one of her highlights from her career. And she's still very young, so she still has a lot more stuff ahead of her. And then she recently just got an independent contract to do different parties and do her Lyra performances. So she said she's really excited about that and looking forward to doing more independent contracts. I think she considers herself more amateur, but in my opinion, if she's getting contracts to do things, she's, a lot better than she probably thinks she is. Um, so she does 3 different things. She does aerial ribbon, which is the stuff we've seen in the previous slides. And then she does lyra, that's on the right, and that's where you have the hoop hanging from the ceiling and you're doing different tricks. And then the wall jumping, she does that as well, and that's where you have the trampoline on the floor, the wall, and you're kind of running up the wall and doing different flips and things, and then bouncing back off from the trampoline and going up the wall. She said she was actually able to learn that in like 2 weeks, so I think that seems pretty quick to me, but she obviously has had a lot of training in gymnastics and other things, so she's well versed in that area. So she does all 3 of those, and she loves them all, and she says a lot of gymnasts do multiple acrobat um, things like she does, like the lyra and wall jumping. Okay, so what did I learn? So I feel like I learned a lot from her, and I'm so thankful that she sat down with me. So I'll start with the training regimen and competitions. So she said that in the summertime when she's not in school, she will train for 4 to 5 hours. In school, since she's in school, she hasn't been able to train nearly as much. She basically is only able to go 1 day a week. Um, but she says for a professional athlete who does this full time, they would train at least 6 hours a day, probably. And they consider like a lot of their performances that they do, they call them competitions. So if I say competition, just know it's not like a typical competition that we think of where we're being judged. It's more of like performing. Uh, she also told me that if she has a competition coming up on a per performance, she usually plans at least 3 months ahead of time. So they're training for 3 months, just planning their routine, picking the music, finding what tricks they want to do, and all of that at least 3 months in advance. And then she told me that the day before the performance, they do a full dress rehearsal. And during that full dress rehearsal, they make sure their equipment's set up, they know how to transition between, the different acts that are before them or after them, and all their material, the rigging is done properly, and then also that their routine is the way that they want it to be. So, full dress rehearsal day before, very important. And then the day of, she says that they will warm up on the equipment, and she says the only focus on the equipment that you're using for that performance. So even though she does wall jumping and lyra, if she's doing aerial ribbon for her performance, that's the only thing that she's warming up on. She doesn't focus on anything else. Um, because if she's performing it, that's what she needs to focus on. And she also said that you have to do strength training. So she said you have to be extremely strong in order to do all of these things, and strength training is extremely important. So in addition to just practicing your skill, your strength training. And then you're also doing dance practice. So she says she doesn't do much dance, but she says if you're doing professional, if you're part of Cirque du Soleil or anything like that, you are definitely doing dance training or have had a lot of dance training in the past. So, okay. So I also asked her about money because I think, when I think of gymnastics or other sports, I think about how much money matters, or, that's what I assumed that it matters because, you always hear about the amount it costs for a coach and the gym and, all the hours that you put in. And she says that money definitely does matter. So you have to have some kind of money in order to be able to participate in this sport because of the coaches and the training. So she said at her gym that she goes to, for if you were to go to one class 2 times a week, and one class is probably only an hour to 2 hours, 2 hours at the most, you would pay $200 a month for that. So 2 times a week, $200 a month. That's a lot of money for a family to pay, especially with all the other stuff that they have. So you have to be very dedicated to it. Um, so you have to have support. And I don't know if that's a lot or a little compared to other gyms, but I feel like that's, quite a bit of money to be paying, especially if you're not even going every single day of the week. And if you want to make it to that elite level, you probably do have to train every single day at the gym. So money is important. Socioeconomic status does make a difference. We also talked about the importance of music and dance. So she said that in a lot of her performances, music, she either picks a song first or she does the routine and then picks a song. So if her and her teammate find a song that's really high tempo, has a lot of like big drops in the music, then she'll do a lot of drops in her performance. If she has a routine that's kind of, doesn't have as many drops or it's a little bit more flowy, she said, then she'll pick a song that's a little more flowy and calm. So music and the dance aspect and how the routine goes all play an important role in the routine. And she says most routines are about 3.5 to 4 minutes long. And she says that's plenty time, probably more than enough to do a routine. And she also mentioned how important stage presence is, the smile, and make sure that you look like you're having a good time because that's an important part of it too. So I asked her specifically about the culture of this circus because she is, part of that. And she said that the people who, are participating in this circus or are drawn to it, are very open, and accepting people, right? So they're very open about their bodies, about their sexuality, and they're just accepting of each other in that way. And she said it's very, hippie-ish, and it's just that they're very open, with everything about themselves. And she loves the culture and she loves being a part of it. And yeah. So then I asked her also about safety and equipment. And she said that equipment is extremely important. So she said when you first start in a class, you basically learn how to do knots, how to rig the material, how to rig the equipment properly. So like the carabines, so it's kind of like rock climbing. She said you have to know the equipment really well before you can even get on it and, execute any type of skill. So safety and equipment is huge. And she said that's why the dress rehearsals are so important because you're basically just making sure all of the equipment is good to go 100%, so nothing bad happens and everybody can be really safe. So those different skills and techniques that you learn are key before you can even get up there in the air and do anything, she said. Um, so then she mentioned, like in our conversation, she talked about what's the difference between professional and amateur. I think she's more of a professional athlete, but I think she considers herself to be amateur. But what she said is that a professional athlete is able to transition really smoothly between tricks. So it's not just like doing the trick, but it's incorporating little dance and hand movements and pointing of the toes and like the other little small things where, you don't even notice that they're transitioning from a trick. It just all flows together really well. Whereas an amateur, they might be able to perform one trick like a drop, but then it like stops. They don't know how to transition properly in between the big tricks. So she said that really makes a difference. And obviously the dance aspect, how good of a dancer and how well they're to incorporate dance moves makes them more of a professional versus amateur. Um, so she also told me, I asked about mental skills training, right? Because we were talking about that before during our my interview with her. And she said that mental skills are extremely important in this sport, and especially confidence, because you're doing so many risky and dangerous things. So, like, she said they could be anywhere between 18 and 35 feet high, and there's really no limit, but that's on average how high they are. And she said because, you've had training, your body can do it, but it's believing in yourself to make sure that you can do it. So she's never used any mental skills like specifically, but she says self-talk is important, like having that positive self-talk, because you have to believe yourself. You have to tell yourself that you can do this trick even though you've never performed it before. But you've had the training, your body can do it. So she said that's a really, really big part in her sport. And she was really interested in learning more about imagery. So it might be something that I talk to her about in our next session that we do. But I think skills like that could really help these athletes so that they can increase their confidence, have positive self-talk, and believe in themselves that they can do, whatever trick because they've had the training. And that's why I kind of put that picture up on the right just to say, your body will go exactly as far as your mind pushes it to because that's what they do. They push their bodies really far. They do dangerous things with, no safety net. And you just have to mentally tell yourself that you can do it. So that is everything I learned from Hannah. And hopefully I didn't forget anything for you guys. But what I want to do next is just show you guys a video clip of a performance. It's not by her, but it is a aerial ribbon performance, and just like watch how the music goes along with her body and the performance that she kind of put together. And I believe this was an actual competition, so you can do competitions where there is judging, but a lot of people don't, and Hannah's never done anything like that. She just does like the more performances. So I'll let you guys go ahead and watch this.
Say something, I'm giving up on you. I'll be the one if you want me to. Anywhere I would have followed you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I am feeling so small. It was over my head. I know nothing at all. And I will stumble and fall. I'm still learning to love, just starting to crawl. Say something, I'm giving up on you. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. Anywhere I would have followed you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I will swallow my pride. You're the one that I love. I'm saying goodbye. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. And anywhere I would have followed you. Oh, say something, I'm giving up on you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. Say something.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. You could see how she moved kind of, with the music, and she did a lot of like the spinning and the climbing and the drops, which are really awesome. So there's my references. I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned a little bit more about aerial acrobatics. Thanks.